my worth is tied to nothing. It just is. And I'm eternally grateful that I have that understanding now. And if I can give that to anyone else, everyone else, I will shout that from all of the rooftops. It's not tied to anyone else.
Okay, thank you for coming here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about you, your interests, your family, work.
I am extremely passionate. I like that word over like assertive or like any other things. I get really loud just because I get really passionate about things. I love really, really hard and really easy. I love most people. And I think that is a spiritual gift because it just really comes to me. I have 3 little chickens that are not little anymore, 18, 20, and 22. So 3 girls. They are extremely different and funny little beans. I do hair for my real life. That's my real job. And I have a paddleboard business, which is hysterical because we live in Utah. But I teach intro to stand-up paddleboarding for Weber State University, and then I just rent paddleboards and give private lessons, and that's what I do. And I live and die for the sun. It gives me life.
Awesome. How old were you when you first married?
How old was I? 20.
20.
Not the smartest move.
How was your courtship?
He was interested at first, and then literally from that time on, I just inserted myself into his life, which I only mostly see now out of hindsight, but it was literally mostly me sitting in his garage watching him work on things. It really wasn't like a it wasn't like a date. There were, I mean, we had a couple of like good dates, but it really was just a me trying really hard. Yeah, like there was a lot less of him coming to me coming to him was mostly what it was. Kind of weird. It's weird to me now because I can see that that was not the best move, and I would hate for that to be my girls. Like I can see that that would be big fat red flag for them. So not the best. There was not a lot of effort on his part, but there didn't have to be because I was doing it.
Interesting. How long were you married when you noticed the marriage was struggling?
Months.
Really?
Easily the first year. I got pregnant like within the first 3 months. So she was born just before like our first anniversary.
Wow.
And so I'm sure some of it was pregnancy, schmacky hormones and not feeling stuff. But like early on, I just remember being like, act like you like me. Hold my hand. Like even like at family stuff, like sit by me, like choose me, walk by me, you know, hold my hand. So, like I knew that that was like, why is this so hard? Why can't you just pretend you like me? Why can't you like me? And so that was hard. And then I remember always knowing that our relationship was hard, and I felt it was harder than most because I feel like marriage is hard. Marriage is hard. It just is. Ours was harder than most. But I believe that we chose it, so therefore here we are. I don't believe in soulmates, so I just believed that like we chose this, and so we're gonna do it.
When did you know you needed to get out of the relationship? And when you knew, did you stay or get out?
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I stayed for a long time. We went to counseling, I think like, I want to say like 12 years in. Him obviously very reluctantly, and we got nothing out of it. We went like 4 times, and he was stinking, didn't want to participate. But like, it was super questionable. Like, I absolutely could have, and I wouldn't say should have left then, because I'm glad that I was able to keep my girls in the same house, under the same roof for as long as we did. We really were not a good match, but I refused to be my mom, which was married 5 times. So like, that was literally my driving factor in staying as long as I did, which is ridiculous. But also like I didn't want to give up, so I just kept doing the thing. So like 12 years in, I knew that it was a problem. Like, we had a few good years, but I just had babies fast, and so then that's what I was, and that was my priority, and he didn't help, and I always begged, and it never changed, and yeah, I stayed at the first inklings. Like, I knew it was rough from the beginning, but then, like I said, I had babies super fast, and so then that was the priority more than like a relationship. And then when the girls were getting a little bit older, I was like, oh yeah, not so good.
So how were you feeling during that time, and how did you cope? Or how did you get through or conquer each day?
So the time when I actively left, or the time when I first realized?
So maybe both, like when you were trying to just get through it for your girls, and then when you decided I've got to do this. How did you?
Well, at
how did you
first
get
when
through that?
we went through like a pretend, 4 times of counseling, I just was like, whatever, I'm gonna keep doing what I do. I also can see in hindsight, I did love him. I did love him. I was not in love with him. I was attracted to him in certain ways, which it's also only hindsight. I was attracted to him when he did certain things. Like when he rode a motorcycle, that was attractive. When he drove a truck, that was attractive. But like, him individually did nothing for me, but I didn't know anything else, so it just was kind of like that. So after that first time, I just was like, whatever, we'll just keep doing what we do and trying, and I think we moved shortly after that or before that. So I kept doing it, but then he started changing. He was actually addicted to pain pills, and I had thought that was possibly the case, but I didn't know until I had broke my hip, and so I had extreme pain pills, like a high dose, and so I was counting them, and they were missing, and I confronted him, and he was like, no, what? And then later comes back crying, I'm so sorry, but so then a few years go by, and he just starts changing, becomes more neglectful, which I've only realized, like, I knew it wasn't healthy, and I knew it was abusive in a way, but I didn't know, like, I just knew he ignored me. So I just discovered, like the therapist said, is neglecting a child abuse? 100%. Is neglecting your spouse abuse? 100%. So super neglected, super ignored, super separated. But at the end, he was separating himself more. And then later I discovered, like, because he was just hiding things, so he had to separate himself more from me and maybe the girls. But so when I really knew, only acts of God. Like, I don't even we had talked about it actually. Oh, because at the end, we actively started going to a therapist. And his first words were, I am not here to save your marriage. I'm here to do whatever is best for both of you, which, if that is to stay, golden. If it is to be apart, that's it too. Like, I am here to do whatever is best for both of you. So that was interesting. But we were both going, and so we went to months of intense counseling, and then we knew, like, it was done. He had stopped trying for, like, the last 3 years completely. Like, he was checked out. And so then we knew. And then after I went to attorney, I told him I went, and then he was livid because I wouldn't tell him what the attorney said. So then it got really bad after that. And so at that point, then it was just kind of survival. I had moved out for a couple weeks in the summer. This was now November, so in the summer I moved out, took the little girls to my mom's for a couple weeks, but I couldn't run a house, and I couldn't run my business that was from home, from another house. So I moved back home, moved into the basement, so I was already in the basement for months. And the girls kind of kept me going and surviving. Like, I had to work, I had to do the girls, and so, I mean, we just learned to do the things. But I am an emotional non-eater, so I was not eating well, you know, get super stressed, and it was just a matter of making it. And then once it was decided and it was happening, there was so much turmoil in my brain because I had such trauma from my childhood, getting moved and a million different dads and boyfriends and a revolving door, that I was so hell-bent on not having that be my girl's experience. Which, in turn, my attorney told me that I gave him more heartburn than anybody he's ever worked with because I wouldn't listen very good. So, yeah, it was just getting through it was just a matter of, like, little acts of God, I'm sure. Like, I don't remember a lot of it, the few months of it happening at home. I remember, like, him saying stuff like, I took curtains down that were my grandma's. My grandma's. Stop taking stuff out of this house. So a daily of, you and all your shit are going to be out on the street. Like, that was daily until I left. So it just got really aggressive at the end. So that was hard. Because he became a person that I had no idea who he was. And to this day, I have no idea who he is.
How do you feel this affected you as a mother?
Well, the divorce part, because the reason I gave my attorney such heartburn was because I wanted to keep my girls as stable as humanly possible. Like, I did not want to disrupt their lives. Like, this was not their fault. This was not their battle to fight. Well, during the divorce, I did not want my girls to feel what I felt or go through what I did as a child, moving all the time and being disrupted. So I wanted it to be as stable as I could. Hindsight, it wasn't fantastic, but I left the house. He could have the house. The girls would have stability there. Like, they would come to me, but, like, I was so ridiculously, like, 50%. Like, I will take 50% of the food storage. Like, nonsensical. It was so silly. But I couldn't get past that. Like, I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want to disrupt them. Because I was so disrupted. Now talking to my girls, that was not helpful. Like, they say, like, no, like, you weren't there. So my advice to anybody would be, like, sell the family home. Everybody has to get displaced and start over. Because then it's just, we're playing family and mom's not there, and that's really hard on them. Because then it's their house and somebody else comes in. If I feel like if it was in a different house, then it's dad's house and mom's house. Instead of, this was the family house, now it's dad's house, and that's different. And now I mother them in a way, like, I'm so mindful because they're all older, like, this there are certain things that are deal breakers, and you don't follow this path necessarily. Just like, we all want our kids to do better, and I mean, they will have their own paths 100%. I just want it to be more mindful. Mine was not mindful. I got married because I wanted to not be at home, and I wanted somebody to pay attention to me, and he paid attention enough. You know, I got plenty of attention, but not like, I got plenty of attention from men, boys, but like, I did like what he did. He was a helper. He helped other people. He like would do things for other people. So I did like that. Later that became a problem. But there were obviously things that I loved about him, but he was never able to give me what I needed. And so I try to tell like the girls, like, I want to talk, like, it goes both ways. Like, it needs to go both ways. Because marriage is hard in and of itself. Don't make it harder by getting married just because it sounds good. I'd rather them not get married than get married just for the sake of getting married. And I think that is pretty poured into their heads. Which, like, in a good way, they're pretty mindful. It's not just like, we get married because it's our culture and we do it and we're young and we're supposed to. And yeah, so I just try to be, it gives me more grace for my mom, because I want grace from my girls, because I don't do it perfectly. So being a mom, I'm glad I was able to keep them in the same house as long as I did. They were like 13, 14, and 16, so it rocked my oldest the worst. Because, you know, her entire life was bullshit. Like, it wasn't. And she would have been fine with me to stay in the basement forever as long as it didn't disrupt her. I mean, that's just her nature. But, yeah. Hard stuff. But better for it.
Can you share some healing moments you've had?
First I will say, the hardest thing I ever did in life was get married. Or not married. The hardest thing I ever did in life was get divorced. The second hardest thing I've ever done is get remarried. But I had super tender mercies when I moved out. Like, only by acts of God did I get out when I did, be able to find the place that I did, all those kinds of things. But getting remarried, my husband worked out of state, so he would be gone for 2 weeks, home for 1, gone for 2, home for 1. When I got remarried, my youngest moved in with her dad full time. So my oldest and my youngest were at their dad's, and my middle was with me, but she was in college, going to college. So I was alone a lot. And I realized I had not mourned my family. Not really like the marriage, but my family and what I thought it was going to be. So I am super grateful for the time alone and the quietness that my husband provided, like, unknowingly, but, you know, he was gone and I had a home, and I didn't have all the burdens on me. And so through that, like, there's still healing, of course, but mourning my family was necessary, because it's a loss for sure. You know, and I was married for 18 years, so, and I got married when I was 20, so I was married almost as long as I wasn't. So it was such a significant part, and it didn't end like it was supposed to. So that was healing, and there's still healing moments. You know, it's been 6 years, and I have beautiful clients that, you know, I do hair with, and that's therapy for sure for me, for them. That I get little awakenings and healing moments from, you know, them and us talking that it's just continuing. But I think the biggest part of the healing was mourning. So then I could acknowledge it and know that it was hard and know that it was also not meant to be. We were not ever compatible, ever. But accepting that also. Like, it wasn't, there definitely were things that went wrong and sideways and people were responsible for, but we were not a match that should have ever been together from the beginning. So recognizing that is also healing. Like, I didn't fail. We weren't good. We were not good. We have beautiful kids who are really strong-willed, and I love all of that, but we were not ever good. We were not a match of any kind. I just allowed myself to be what he wanted. So also through the mourning, I've discovered that I have passions and loves and things that are mine, and they're not tied to anybody else. And it's really ultimately me and Jesus. Like, that is it. Like, not even my husband, not my kids. Like, that's where it ends and begins. Like, the rest, like, I can't control anybody else, and I like to. But in, like, letting that stuff go, I know the only place that I can find complete peace. Which, that sounds so, like, I love Jesus. I do, but, like, literally.
Yeah.
Like, it just, that's my answer to most things. So, I was actually 38 years old before I discovered that I had worth that was not connected to anything else. Not my actions, not what I did. Like, a power higher than myself gave me my worth, and nothing could take that away. Like, nothing that I had done, nothing that anybody had done to me. Biggest lesson, and it breaks my heart that I was 38 years old before I learned that my worth is literally tied to nothing else. God, higher power, something bigger than me, gave me that worth, and nothing I do is going to take that away. And I wish I knew that before, but I know it now, and that drives so much of my belief system and how I interact with lots of things. My worth isn't if I'm married, or it doesn't matter if I'm divorced. And divorce is not the worst thing on the planet. Like, it's not. We think it is, or we think it can be, but it's not a title, but it's fine. Like, divorce is divorce. I heard a thing like, just let's call it uncoupling. We uncoupled. Divorce sounds so harsh, and which is why I stayed as long as I did. I stayed for 18 years. Collectively, maybe 4 were good. So, but literally, like, my worth was tied to all of that, and my worth is tied to nothing. It just is. And I'm eternally grateful that I have that understanding now. And if I can give that to anyone else, everyone else, I will shout that from all of the rooftops. It's not tied to anyone else.
What advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, jeez. Kind of the advice that I give my girls now. I really wish my younger self knew her worth. Again, I've learned recently, like, I have attachment issues. Shocking, of course I do. Like, there was a revolving door while I was growing up, you know? There was nothing consistent. We were always moving, you know? So, I held on to something so tightly, whether it was good or not. Because that's where my worth was. And that's what I was good at. I was good at being a wife, and I was good at being a mom. So, I just wish she knew her worth, because I think that would have changed a lot of things of the choices she made. And also, I would love to tell her to just live life. Like, marriage is not the goal. That is not the goal of life. Like, our culture may make us believe that. And marriage can be wonderful, and is wonderful, and hard as shit. But it is not the only goal. It is not everybody's plan. Marriage is not the end-all be-all. Like, go live life. My current husband lived in Taiwan for 6 years after his mission. He lived a whole life that nobody got to know about. But how wonderful. Like, my daughter went to Bolivia for 3 weeks on a humanitarian trip. But I want that for everyone. Just live a little bit of life outside of your world. So you can have a little bit of understanding. Like, we all need to see what's outside of our little box, because I think it'll give us better perspective. I really wish she knew her value.
What advice would you give your future self?
I don't know if I even thought about that one. Keep being true to who you are. And remember that things change. That's the only constant in life, is that things change. And as things change, my opinions can change, and my views can change. And that doesn't detract from who I am. It's just change, and it's okay. And just because something is right now doesn't mean it's right later. And I've made it through some pretty heavy stuff. And I can do it again whether I want to or not. And to remember the support system. That is another tender mercy. Like, I have the most beautiful, like you, people in my life who God has just placed. Like that, I mean, I really do think that people are placed in our life. And not everybody's here forever. You know, not everybody serves a purpose for always, but we can learn from all of our relationships and from everybody. Because I don't know, I believe that people are inherently good, but my future self, I just want her to remember her worth too, because sometimes it's still hard. I mean, it took me, literally, I've only realized it for the last 6 years that, you know, where my worth is. So I have a lot of unlearning to do before I think that completely is part of every fiber. Because intellectually I know that, but emotionally sometimes it's hard in the midst of situations, and we're not responsible for anybody else. We're not responsible for their actions. We're not responsible for their responses. we can't control anybody, nor should we actually try. Be 100% true to myself, because I have to live with myself. So I don't want to weaken my voice for anybody else. I will do what I need to do in my marriage to be a good companion and a good partner, but I will never lose my voice again. And I will speak for whoever doesn't have a voice until they get their own.